begin with energy tonight, and government has justified review of the old term liquefied natural gas LNG deal, describing it as very expensive. The previous contract would have engaged three firms: Quantum Power and West Africa Gas, as well as Kahil Supply LNG, and construct an import terminal. But government insists the old arrangement would have cost the country more than $1 billion. The GNPC last Friday finally signed a new agreement with Russian-based Gazprom. It's the largest gas producer in the world. Deputy Minister of Energy William Orekwedu explains to Joy Business how this new deal would improve power supply in the country.
The Gazprom thing is just a supply of LNG, and I think a lot of work, great pains were taken in the selection of the suppliers. So that one is there's no problem as far as I can see with the supply or the involvement of Gazprom and Sahara to some extent.
What would that mean for power generation? I won't talk about that.
Reliability, because of the steady supply of the fuel.
All right, so let's get some perspective to that story. Joining us now is Executive Director of the Kumasi Institute of Technology and Environment, Ishmael Ejekumhene. Thanks very much for your time tonight. What do you make of government's decision to abrogate that liquefied natural gas contract and replace it with this one with Gazprom?
Well, I think the government and the Minister of Energy, they've explained extensively the circumstances under which they feel that the previous agreement or the deal with Quantum was not in the best interest of the country and why they believe that this one is the best. So I am reliably informed that there wouldn't be any issue of judgment death, and that it's there's a condition precedent that Quantum has refused to meet. So in that sense, I don't have any serious problems with that. I would have had problems if indeed it would have resulted in the judgment death. But as it stands now, we need the regasification facility, and the earlier we construct it, the better, because then it will enhance our energy security. All right,
tell me, what does Gazprom add? I mean, signing a new contract with them, because they are the world's largest gas producer. What does it add to, our energy situation in the country?
It means a lot. It's like you rightly said, it's a big player, and once they are on board, it sends signal to others that this is a serious market, that others could come and do business. But I thought there was this agreement with Equatorial Guinea to also supply gas. So we need to be clear that we don't sign too many gas agreements that we probably, I'm sure they have their eye on the ball, but Gazprom is big. It's a big player in the industry, so it could spawn some interest coming from other equally big players in the gas field.
Okay, and let's explore issues of pricing, because we understand that the previous contract was overpriced. I don't know what you're hearing about this new deal and if it's a good one.
What I've heard, I haven't seen the agreement, but what I've heard suggests that it has to be an improvement on the previous deal. So, I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. Otherwise, then there will be very little justification for the cancellation, apart from the fact that there were concerns that we have over the capacity was way beyond what we needed, and we had bound ourselves to a very long-term contract that could have cost us a lot of money. But the price, I'm told, it's better than what we would have gotten under the previous agreement.
Okay, and well, maybe finally, aren't we over flooding the market with gas supply?
Good question. I know they are aware of that, especially considering the fact that we're going to start having our own indigenous gas. Once the Sankofa comes on stream, we need to be mindful of that. Otherwise, then we'll be stuck with oversupply. But at the moment, I'm fully aware that they have that in sight, and what they are contracting should be just about what we need to augment what we can get locally.
All right, thanks very much for your time. That was Ishmael Ejekumhene. He is the Executive Director of Kite, speaking to us on the deal government has reached with Gazprom for gas supply. We want to move on now, and the presentation of next year's budget might just be a little over 1 month away, but government has already settled on the broad theme that would shape its economic policies for the next 1 year. But what are the exact areas the 2018 budget would focus on, and how would it impact on the operations of businesses? There's more in the following report.
According to government, the budget would look at consolidating some of the gains it has made when it comes to expenditure, which has been under control over the past months, inflation and economic growth. Sources say government would also want to use the 2018 budget to reduce the amount of money in relation to revenue mobilized. Government is hopeful some additional measures being implemented will help boost revenue mobilization, even though it has indicated that there would be further cuts in taxes announced in the 2018 budget. However, many would be looking forward to see how government would outline its fiscal policy, looking at the fact that revenue, as at the middle of this year, is still struggling to meet targets. There is also talked about the establishment of a fund mainly aimed at supporting small businesses that will also be announced in the 2018 budget. On the broader theme, government economic policy for next year would be guided by programs aimed at boosting agricultural and industrialization. One can talk about government one district, one factory. This should mean that more funding would be allocated to this sector, so if you're a businessman operating in this area, there could be an opportunity for you in terms of soft credit. This is because sources close to government have maintained that they want these programs to be private sector led. Government is also expected to use the 2018 budget to give some detailed breakdown on how it intends to fully fund its flagship educational program, Free SHS. This would be the country's last budget that the IMF may have a greater say in terms of meeting some of the critical targets under the program, which is now expected to end in the first quarter of 2019.
Well, meanwhile, Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta has been explaining to Joy Business why government would want to consolidate the gains made so far.
We expect strong banks to do. I expect there'll be some consolidations and mergers, but we will still keep a very Ghanaian face in the banking system.
Energy bond, what is happening to it?
Energy bond, the expectation is that structuring, etc., will be completed, and that by the end of September will come to market. And that would be a big intervention.
Have we got to know the commitment that you are hoping to secure so that it will be a successful one, of course?
I think it will be. I believe it will be successful. I think the indications so far are that the institutional investors will come into play, and so we should be all right.
Now, a new drama series designed to tackle some challenges facing the informal sector, especially SMEs, has been launched in Accra. The TV and radio program titled Solutions is woven around the dealings of a business consultancy with the sole aim of offering mass education and sensitizing entrepreneurs. Now, speaking to Joy Business at the press launch of Solutions, Managing Director of Ingenious Africa, Kwame Boedi, noted that the program will enable the realization of the 8th Sustainable Development Goal, which aims to promote sustainable economic growth and employment for all. The series is a collaboration between Premium Bank, AGI, and production house Ingenious Africa.
More than 85% of Ghanaians are employed by the informal sector, sometimes called SMEs, they're called several names, the informal economy, and they are beset by so many problems: limited capital, lack of business knowledge, lack of access to capital, you name it, so many of them. Then I said, but if we wanted to change our social economy, if we wanted to bring Ghanaians up, if we wanted to get more Ghanaians employed, then this is the sector that we must sit at. It's a no-brainer, because if they already employ 85% of Ghanaians, yet they are inefficient, then if we were to make them efficient, then we will all be happy. Because we are a media development firm, anytime we see a problem, we tend to look for media solutions. And, you know, the media goes far, TV, radio, internet, it goes to everybody, it goes to every home these days, especially with the so-called smartphones, you know. So imagine a business consultancy, and that's what solutions. A business consultancy run by husband and wife. Although we are going to talk about SMEs and so on, we're going to teach serious home values as well. We will show on Joy Prime as well, starting first week in February. With the radio, we'll start the radio on Adom. We love multimedia. We'll start on Adom in February and then repeat it again on Adom. We're also developing a dedicated website. These days, the millennials, they are on the websites and the social media spaces. So we have a dedicated website. We have social media handles, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, so that consistently, as we engage, it's out there for everybody to access day by day by day.
Turning to Agric now, and some farmers in the northern region have appealed to government to consider adding the rearing of livestock to its planting for food and jobs agricultural policy. They said the vegetation of the region made it strategic location for the rearing of livestock, for which reason it was important for support packages to be made available to the livestock farmers in the area. The tour was led by Director of Agriculture in the Meon district to some farms at Sang in the northern region.
The first phase of the Planting for Food agriculture policy of government focuses on supporting farmers with subsidies to acquire fertilizers and seeds to grow maize, soya beans, rice, sorghum, as well as vegetables such as onions, pepper and tomatoes. The program, which started this planting season, has seen government supply quality seeds and fertilizers to farmers at subsidized prices across the country. The Director of Agriculture in the Meon district, Abednego Abosori, who led a tour of some of the farms of Sang, said about 800 farmers have been enrolled and were benefiting from the Planting for Food and Jobs project.
Look at this, and I would say that the patronage for this particular program is high. Okay. Because if I want to look at the records, especially with maize, we have so many farmers into maize and that kind of thing, because of the sensitization that we've gone out there. So what I want to feel, or my opinion, is just that there are farmers who are benefited from the package. Whatever you are paid, the rest that are left, try and make it up so that the program can continue. As I said, this is one of the most flexible programs. And it is evident that because we have witnessed significant increase in the acreages of maize, followed by rice and then the others. And so I think that those who think that the package is not helpful, maybe that is their own opinion.
Some of the farmers were of the view that government's Agric initiative had raised the expectation of farmers for a bumper harvest and called for the same support to be extended to livestock farming.
They brought some chemicals and they came and even sprayed the place. The first one, then the second one, they said we should do it. So after the worms, it destroyed. We those who were able to buy to get the chemical, but those who couldn't get, it destroyed the farms. So there's one house by my house, that man, he couldn't get there. So in fact, it destroyed. When you go to his farm, you shed tears.
So Planting for Food and Jobs has really helped us a lot. The price is moderate. Everything is cool.
The visits to the Meon district and other parts of the region was meant to ascertain the initial impacts of the Agric policy on farmers in the area.
Let's talk about mangoes now, because the chief agronomist at Blue Skies factory, Ernest Ablo, says only 10 to 15% of mangoes produced locally meet export quality. He says the sector is not going to expectation because it has been undermined by some quality challenges. He was sharing some thoughts about the industry when Joy Business's Odilia Intiamwa caught up with him in his office at Dobro, a suburb of Nsawam in the eastern region. There's more in this report.
The chief agronomist at Blue Skies, Ernest Ablo, has said that only 10 to 15% of mangoes produced in Ghana meet export quality. He told Joy Business that the mango production industry in Ghana is not growing to expectation as it is faced with a quality challenge. Some years ago, mango farmers were taking through ultra-high-density plantation technology to improve yields and the quality of mangoes produced in the country. This was organized by the Federation of Association of Ghanaian Exporters with sponsorship from the Export Development and Agricultural Investment Fund. Mango has been identified as one of the main traditional exports in the country. Ghana is the only country in the world that produces mangoes twice a year, January to February and June to July. Mango is a driving force in Ghana, but the quality is simply bad.
We are the only mango processors that produce mango from January 1st to 31st December. Every day of the year we process mangoes, and we pride ourselves, we are the leading mango processors in the world. I can tell you confidently that about only 10% or 15% of our production can meet export quality.
Ernest Ablo fears a glut is imminent as many more mangoes are being planted without recourse to quality.
Which means that we need to work hard. Otherwise, the time will come, we will be in serious glut and we didn't know where to send the food, because blue sky cannot absorb all that even the country has.
Applying the right fertilizer to give the right flavor and texture, according to Ernest Ablo, is critical. He concludes that the exportation of mangoes on a large scale can only be harnessed if researchers do more on pest and disease controls and apply the right fertilizer.
Our issue now is how best we'll be able to sit down our researchers, let them do good research work to get on top of pests and diseases and improve our quality.
Ghana's mango production was 1,200 tons in 2007 and about 2,000 in 2008. In terms of export earnings, yield per acre for mango was between 2,500 Ghana cedis and 4,000 cedis.
Let's update you on one of our top stories tonight. The Public Interest and Accountability Committee, PIAC, has called on government to conduct a forensic audit of all state projects funded by revenues from the oil and gas production. According to the committee, the audit is critical to throw more light on how some oil and gas earmarked funds were used over the past 6 years. The audit is expected to reveal how contracts were awarded to some companies under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act within the last administration. Here's more in this report.
The call is coming after a project inspection conducted by the Public Interest and Accountability Committee revealed that some projects earmarked for completion from funds of the revenue derived from oil and gas sector were poorly delivered. Dr. Steve Mantiel is a member of the PIAC.
PIAC has on several occasions also raised the issue about poorly executed oil-funded projects, sometimes non-existent projects, supposed to be funded with oil revenue. The time has come for government to do a forensic audit of all oil-funded projects in this country, and to bring to book anybody who has abused our common heritage, which is the revenue derived from the extraction of this important resource. And I think when we do that, it will serve as a deterrent for anybody who may be tempted to abuse the oil revenue because he thinks there will not be any consequences for his actions.
According to him, the decision by governments to finance some social programs with oil funds was inappropriate.
Forensic audit should have its underpinning on value for money considerations, because some of the expenditures have been very frivolous. In 2012, some of the expenditures have been clearly targeted at winning votes. For instance, the spending of 2 million Ghana cedis on the Musicians Association of Ghana was clearly intended to get the musicians to support the political campaigning of the government in power. There have been other expenditures that were targeted at the youth in road maintenance program, huge sums of money spent on that. LEAP, huge sums of money spent on that. Maslock, and all these things. For me, those expenditures were not going to lead to any improvement in the economy. They were monies that were bereft of value for money considerations.
Another key issue that came up was the inability of the Ministry of Finance to engage local authorities before awarding oil-funded contracts in the various district assemblies. The bitumen surfacing of the new Tafonobi-Samlesi-Enuabing feeder road project was constructed with concrete, contrary to the initial plan of bitumen. Frederick Addison is the Eastern Regional Manager of Feeder Roads.
Bitumen surfacing or the asphalt. However, with the bitumen surfacing or asphalt, you'll be doing maintenance. Maybe every year you do patching, So maybe after 20 years, if you add the maintenance cost plus the initial cost of the bitumen surface, it will be more than do undertaking a concrete pavement. And maybe this one you only do grassing. You cut grass cutting. So if you look at the life cycle cost over 15 years, 20 years, this becomes cheaper. It's just that we don't have money, so everybody shy away from. If you look at the amount of money, yes.
Considering the mandate of PIAC, some members of the public back calls for amendments to the Petroleum Revenue Management Act to increase funding for the committee.
All right, you're watching Business Live. We want to update you on the stock market. Joining me in studio, Bertha Atubiga, with the latest on trading today. Bertha, thanks for joining us. So we were expecting a lower level of market activity this week. How are things starting this week?
Okay, last week, Monday, we were expecting the new market capital requirement for the banks to actually have some kind of impact on the financial equities on the stock market. And it did have some impact because we saw some financial equities losing on their previous share prices. And we also saw the major indices, the composite and the financial stock index, actually come down by close of week, and that affected the average returns that we have for these major indices on the stock market. So as of Friday, we saw the composite index come down by 5.2 points as compared to previous day's trade to close at 36.78%, and the financial stock index came down by 7.01 points, which is quite higher than the composite index, implying that we had more financial equities actually losing on their previous share prices as compared to the other sectors in the stock market. So the financial stock index came down to about 30.92%. So the composite index is leading with 36.78% on the Ghana Stock Exchange. And if you look at today's market, we saw the major indices drop further, downwards. We didn't see an upward movement on the stock market. We had 6 equities trading, and out of these 6 equities, 5 equities lost on their previous share prices, with only BOPP soaring up or adding up to investors' capital, adding 4 pesos to its previous share price to close at 5 cedis, 65 pesos per share. It was previously trading at 5 cedis, 61 pesos. It was the sole gainer on the stock market. Now, ETI lost a peso to close at 14 pesos per share, and then we had GCB going down by 4 pesos to close at 4 cedis, 40 pesos. PBC lost a peso to close at 4 pesos. Standard Chartered Bank lost 1 cedi, 1 peso to close at 19 cedis, 99 pesos. And then Total went down by 2 pesos to close at 2 cedis, 28 pesos. So out of this 6, we had 3 being financial
Interesting
equities.
that they are financial institutions. How much of this has got to do with the fact that the Bank of Ghana announced a new minimum requirement for banks?
Well, if you remember very well, last week we talked about how this is actually going to impact, especially on the average investor. By all means, there's going to be some kind of fear and panic. There's going to be loss of confidence in a way in some banks, because most of the investors will be waiting or be looking out to see if most of these banks that are listed on the stock market will actually meet these requirements, or if banks that in turn list on the exchange will meet this requirement, or are they going to merge with other banks. So that kind of fear and panic is there, but that's what actually saw these equities, like a slowness in trade when it comes to the financial sector, and that also had that impact on the average market return on the stock market. So it could be, it had some impact on the stock market.
Okay, let's see how things go as the week evolves. But let's also talk about HFC Bank, because as the financial institutions are not doing well, we were expecting same. But analysts are speculating that there'll be a huge demand in the shares of HFC Bank this week.
Yes.
Why?
Let me just give some brief stuff about HFC. Now, HFC, after the takeover by Republic Bank some years back, we saw the share performance and the share price of HFC actually go down, which was the opposite direction as to what we were expecting. But that was because, one, let me just mention 3 points. Change of management came in. They had to clear their loan books. They had some loans that they had to clear. And then they had a lot of the confidence in the company was not very stable. And if you look at HFC past years recording losses, or when you look at the profits by the total comprehensive income for the company year on year, you realize that it was actually going down, not going up like we're seeing some companies. And what happened is that this year, HFC has taken a new turn. First quarter, we saw impressive financials. They made some profits, and first half of the year, they've recorded some positive results again. Now, last year, 2016 half year, they made a profit of about 14,000, this is actually in thousands of cedis. And then this year, they made about 22,000, which is quite impressive as compared to what they did previously. And looking at the direction whereby now, if you remember very well, I made mention of the fact that now financials are beginning to have some kind of impact or influence on investors' decision whether they should invest in some equities or not. And HFC taking this positive trend, responding to the market or going in the same direction with the stock market, which has become bullish. We're seeing positive results, very impressive average returns on the stock market. It's going to have, with this trend that we're seeing, definitely we're going to see some kind of trade or investors going in for this share. And one thing is, it's actually gained some pesos. Beginning of the year, it's gone up. As of last week, Friday, it was about 1 CD 45 pesos. It began the year below a CD per share. And that should tell you that the equity is going to move up. Demand for the share is going to go up because the financials have become very positive. And going forward, we wish to see more impressive results regarding the fact that a takeover has been taking place and more impressive results are going to come out from the bank.
Interesting happenings on the stock market. Thanks very, very much, Bertha Tubiga. We'll keep watching that, the impact of the announcement of a new minimum capital requirement on the performance of financial institutions on the stock market. Interesting developments. That'll be it for Business Live. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back same time tomorrow.